Hello, welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to extend what we created in the first lecture to actually have a background on the book cover rather than just this solid white background. Now, white is actually a background, but we're going to make a more interesting background. So that's going to be this lecture. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the design menu where we were working before with slide size. Remember, we set the custom size and we set the dimensions of the slide. Well, this time we're going to do Format Background. And it brings up a new pane on the right, which is the Format Background pane. Now, normally these panes have multiple things that you can configure, but with the background, there's only one thing that you can configure, and that's the fill. So it's open here. The little arrow to the left will open and close each of these things if you have more than one. Now, the default is to have solid fill. And you can see that's what we've got right now, and the color, which is selectable down here, is white. Now, I can also set the transparency, and we're going to hit this again later when we work on colored boxes. You don't really need a transparency for the background because it's the very back. You can't see through it. There's nothing to see. So leave the transparency at 0 on the background. But you can definitely change the color. So if we want a solid color for our background for our book, we can just go ahead and pick the various colors that we're interested in, and it'll go ahead and it'll fill the background with that color. If you want a more sophisticated color selection option, go to More Colors. That'll bring up a dialog box where you can pick custom color here. You can type in your RGB values for the exact color that you want, or you can use this cool little hexagonal color selector here to pick the color that you would like for your background. So that's the solid background. The next option that you have is a gradient fill. Now the gradient fill will go from one color to another color to another color. So what you do is you pull these bars to determine the light to dark to light again color variation. These all look like they're the same color. That's interesting. It's not much of a gradient. Let's try a preset gradient. Something like that. There we go. Now we've got a gradient going. So you can see it's going from light blue at the top, in fact, just about white, all the way to a darker blue, and then it goes light again. And you can control where the darkness and the lightness occur by dragging these left and right, and by selecting the gradient types. You can pick the direction, whether it's linear, all kinds of things to create a gradient background. The next option is really pretty much just a texture fill. And you can pick the particular texture that you would like by selecting the texture here. And here are the various textures that you can apply to the background. There's kind of a weird, oh, that's little fishy skeletons. And you can pick from these various textures. I don't think any of these textures are particularly appropriate for a book cover, but play around. You might find something that you like. Another is a pattern fill. Now, patterns are probably even less interesting than textures. And you can pick the pattern, and then you pick the foreground and the background color for the pattern here. So if I want a foreground color of blue and a background color of orange, then I could get blue and orange stripes on my background. Not particularly nice. The final option, and the one that we're going to actually use, and which is used very commonly, is to put a picture in the background, to have a picture fill the entire book cover. So we're going to look at how to do that. You do that by putting the picture on the background. That way it's out of the way and everything is on top of it. And you pick File. Now we're going to pick the file that we want in the background. And I happen to have one here, and we're going to bring it in. Now automatically it takes the picture and it centers it, and it fills the background with the picture. We now have a solid pictured background. We can go, and once again, you don't want to play with the transparency on this. This is just pretty much it for configuring the background. So you have 5 options. You can do the solid fill of a color. You can do a gradient fill, white or black to blue, something like that. You can do a texture, or you can do a picture and pick the file, and the picture will be centered. And then finally, you can actually do a pattern fill, which isn't very interesting at all, and I don't recommend it. So that's setting the background for your book cover.